Hello, everybody. How are you today? I apologize. I am also training my service dog while we are live today. Um, he has forgotten a lot of his manners. Um, since I was in a car accident roughly a month ago, it's about 26 days ago now. Um, that I was injured in and was unable to properly train in training for about 20 of those 26 days. So he has forgotten a lot of his manners and he's barking at people outside again. Um, he is not leaving his treats alone like he should be. Sit, Loki, sit, 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 sit. See? As I said, he's not listening very well. Normally we have this on the first try. Stay. Wait. Wait. Take. Good boy. Um, so he needs to be redirected and kind of reminded that his life is sadly task-based. Um, I would love to not have a disability to where I need my service dog, and I would much prefer him to be able to be a free and happy puppy dog. Um, but good boy. Stay. Stay. Good boy. Um, and so I very much need him to remain task-based. Even though I would much prefer him to be a free, non-needing to work puppy dog. Um, that just sadly is not the case for my little guy. My little guy will be, well, he's not very little. He's like 55 pounds and still growing. He is a Old English sheepdog mix, but he is going to be my mobility dog. So he will be tasked with opening up doors. Loki, stay. He'll be tasked with opening up doors. Bear, no thank you. Stay. Um, and so much more. He'll be helping me brace up, and other things as well. I apologize. I've got both dogs currently trying to act up because they both think that they are, one is receiving more attention than the other. No, thank you, Loki. And neither of them are actually receiving any extra attention compared to the other. Wait. Um, so this is going to be an interesting live, to say the least. I will tell you guys that. So, um, and I appreciate everybody bearing with me. It is um a must do. So, yes, bear, wait. You are doing such a good job, sir. I am very proud of you. Wait, bear, wait. Take. Good boy. Um, So, yes, I truly appreciate everybody bearing with me for today, and the need for training. Um, so now I needed a break from testimony because, oh my goodness, between yesterday and today, I am in audio overload. All we have heard is recorded calls. And like interviews and just recording after recording after recording. Loki, sit. Sit. Stay. Stay. Wait. 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 Um, so I needed a break from the audio. Take. And I am very glad that I am overall taking that break. I apologize for any issues that my mutts tend to cause today. They're both being very facetious. Loki, leave it. Loki is very much living up to his name today, and his sister Bear is not helping the matter at all because she's instigating. And Loki almost got his eyeball poked out because he's too busy playing around. Loki, calm. Loki, calm. Gentle. 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 But yes, today's testimony and yesterday's testimony was just beyond overwhelming. It was just so much recordings and the sensory input that comes with that. As an autistic creator, it can be a little on the overwhelming side. There's a lot of background noise that comes with recordings. You can hear a lot of static, a lot of other people in the background, a lot of various different noises in the background, and not to mention whatever interference is actually in the courtroom at that time. So yes, it can be very overwhelming. And I'm just very excited to get to somebody that is not a fully recorded phone call or interview. I am very excited to get to today's trial video from the trial. So, Loki, you're going to hurt yourself. Sit. Settle. I apologize. He is just being so much today. So as soon as my video decides that it wants to actually pull up on my stream, we will get to. Let me try adding in the video link again. Give me just a moment because it's being a butt. There we go. All right, tech issues fixed. Without further ado, back to day 2. We are officially starting day 2, part 3. We may be able to get fully through day 2 today and start day 3. But we will have to see. So let's get on with day 2. Oh.
The spines will all typically be in that direction. These were more broad, kind of in all directions.
Agora Cyber Charter School is ready to put over 18 years of being a leader in online education.
And if there is a fast motion of blood falling off of something, whether the object or person moving, it will create a distinct pattern with what you saw, the spines that come off the drop. So typically, if it's moving quickly in one direction, the spines will all typically be in that direction. These were more broad, kind of in all directions, which would lend me to think that it was a slower motion and it probably was dropping almost straight down. As I stated before, the texture of what it's falling on affects things too.
2, same thing, is the same similar type?
Yes.
This is 254. What do we see with this evidence marker 2? Evidence marker 1, now evidence marker 2. Ian?
It's just multiple smaller drops. No real directionality in them.
Again, just straight down
Seem
almost?
to be, unless there's a distinct speed to it, they'll generally just look more round.
Now 3, this is evidence marker 3 or EM3.
Yes.
Anything distinctive about this one?
I've looked at that one, and as far as a height goes, that can make a difference. The higher or the more blood volume, it can cause a bigger drop. So the spine's extended further out.
Anything about it being bigger than the other ones? In the size relation?
Yes, so possibly more volume.
And then 4 by the corner there?
Right. Similar. It was a little bit bigger drop as well. There's a void in it. Voids can be from various things. I do know he was potentially shot in a rib. So in that, if someone is shot in a rib or shot in the respiratory system, you can also get the...
Yes, I think she's about to go outside of her expertise.
Okay.
She testified to it's the same.
So when you see this spot here, is it different than the other ones?
A little bit. It has a void in it.
And it is located closest to the steps, is that right?
That one was, I believe, at the other corner, the one near the hallway that went down to his bedroom.
Right, let me back up and see. The bar here, and then right here, is this the corner here?
Yes.
All right, 260, we've got some markers here back on the steps, just showing things you saw on the steps that you thought could be consistent with blood.
Correct.
Seven, is that consistent with a cleanup, I guess?
Possibly, yes.
And then spots 8 and 9 up the steps.
Yes.
And 10 at the top of the steps.
Correct.
I'm beginning at Thrasher 279. Drawing attention now to this ottoman. Did law enforcement, was it pointed out to you that something was on the floor?
Yes, one of the detectives had come in, and while we were, Lieutenant Ballard and I were attending to the blood drops, they started looking through the room for he was looking for a possible projectile, and it was found there adjacent to the ottoman.
We can never stick them. So do you want 289? And did you collect that projectile?
Yes.
As it states, Thrasher 289, we just look at that, any gloves or anything? Want some gloves?
If you have some, if not,
If you just want to lift just the box, if you just lift the box, that's fine.
okay.
All right, if I can take that. Judge Itinerary Davis now states 289.
Okay.
Madam Bailiff, you'll check the jury room. I'm pretty sure there's some in there. Last time we looked for some, either on the counter or underneath in the cabinet.
Judge, is there a way to switch over?
Scissors, we need.
I got it, but I just want to go to the other
Yes. Tell me what you want to do.
All right, just go to the other one. There may be some gloves in the cabinet, they were saying.
No. Well, we found them in the jury room last time we needed them. Let's let them take care of it.
Okay.
So all I want you to do is, if you take the gloves, I'm going to hand it to you. If you can just lay it out flat, like just in the center for me, and then tell me, put it on. Oh, thank you. Is that the line? I think we're good, Judge. We're just trying to get so you can see it. That's perfect. All right.
Raise your eyebrows. You look a good sized forehead.
All right, so this is as we're going to go back through the pictures, but this was the bullet. I think the technical term is a projectile that was found on the floor.
Correct.
And was that properly maintained and stored and sent to the GBI for testing?
Yes.
And was that the only projectile that you found or law enforcement found in the residence?
In the residence, yes.
And is this the shape it is in and the way it looks is pretty much how it was when you collected it from the floor?
I believe it had a little more of a red substance on it, but
Right.
yes.
All right, Judge, we can go back to the...
Now, for just a minute, I want to address this red substance. Um, from other pictures that they show, if I remember correctly, it's later in the trial. I believe it was day 3 or day 4. They were then talking about the plastic inside of this bullet, and it was particular to the type of bullet. It was the particular brand. I forget what brand they said it was, but it was like a specialty brand. I was nerding out on that testimony. I very much also um enjoy firearms. It has been a very long time since I have owned a firearm, but I miss having my Smith& and Wesson 38 Special Airweight. My ex at the time had, because this was when I was a gun owner. My ex bought me my very first gun the day I turned 21. It was really exciting for me. And we really used going to the shooting range and stuff as a bonding experience. He was a Marine and he was very good at shooting. And so he taught me. And honestly, I am still very appreciative even today. So, um, if you are out there listening, um, and you recognize this story, I'm not going to call you out. Um, but just know that I am very appreciative for giving me that skill set and for instilling in me a love for firearms versus a fear of firearms. I don't actually think that he would ever, um, but you never know. I don't know what he is into these days or not into. But yeah, if you were in the Marine Corps and this sounds like a very similar story, um, then know that I appreciate uh, at least some of the things that happened in our relationship. But I really was nerding out on the testimony, but I also very much appreciated that ballistics expert because she gave me a lot of insight as to what type of gun could really have done this. She was explaining various different caliber types that can be used with like a 38 and like a 357, and why one can be used in the gun but not the other. Um, and she was also giving alternate gun types um, as examples of other guns that you can swap out the ammunition. One of the examples that she gave was an AR-15. I forget what you can switch that out with, but um, there is another caliber bullet that you can use, or there was another gun and its caliber bullet, um, the AR-15 bullet could be used with it, but um, I forget which way that went. But that testimony was very fascinating to me, and I honestly am super excited to go back and listen to that a little more closely. Um, I am on, I think, day 9 for my catching up of the testimony. Um, So, yeah, I don't believe that I have hit that part yet. I believe that part took place on day either later in day 9 or at some point in day 10. But that reddish substance that they're talking about you see in later photos is part of the plastic in the bullet. So it makes me curious as to, was this actually the bullet that was shot into Gary? Like, was this part of that even? Um, or was this another round that had been fired and had missed? Um, like, it kind of makes me wonder, was the gun like reloaded at some point? Um, like, it makes me question exactly how many shots were fired in that house because they don't really know. They don't know where Gary was shot. They don't really know when he died. They just know that it could have been at some point between July the 3rd and July the 5th when he was found. Um, and that's a huge window. And I get that the Ferris's um property was very large, but I feel like it would be difficult to hide a body for 2.5 days um without there being signs that you have some sort of a dead body on your property. Um so I really feel that the fact that she can't tell you that the reddish substance was ultimately part of the bullet, and the brand makes me almost feel like she was not fully given all of the information to make a truly informed decision about this particular piece of evidence and how much weight you should attribute to this particular piece of evidence. Like, how do we know that this wasn't something that, you know, was shot at an earlier time out of possibly a different gun? Um, or things like that. Like, I feel like if they could sit here and definitively say, like, oh, you know, this one has blood on it, and it has this like plastic piece that is particular to this one brand of bullet, because that was the characteristic. The ballistics expert knew offhand exactly what brand of bullet this was because of that plastic piece in the middle, that little red plastic piece. um and so I feel like if this expert would have had the ballistics report at the time of her findings, that she probably would have then requested additional analysis on that bullet. Like, I felt like this was a good point to really show where some of the lack of communication and some of the lack of sharing the evidence and information and reports that came out of this case really started to hurt the overall prosecution's evidence. And I really feel like they could have just done a better job. I feel like their evidence and their evidence analysis was not fully complete, um because not everybody was getting the information that could have led to better analysis choices. I apologize if this was very convoluted. um it's all connected in my brain, but the way that my brain goes about stuff is sometimes very convoluted, so I apologize. And the recording's testimony just has my brain like fried. So it's been very nice to listen to the back and forth between the prosecutor and a witness, and like the defense and a witness. So as I have more of that, my brain will start to finally function a little bit better. But yes, so I I very much am able to connect how law enforcement and investigators could have done a much better job of ensuring that the evidence was properly analyzed. And I feel like that's a huge failing in the prosecution's case straight off the bat in this. And I really feel like that hurt the case in a huge way, because I feel like the prosecution possibly was not fully prepared for this. And I feel like they almost rushed the case. And it really just goes to show some of these coincidences that the prosecution wants us to believe that they don't really want to explain. So I'm going to stop jabbering, and I'm going to get back to day 2 testimony on this bullet and the evidence.
What's that? Yeah. Turn it off. All right, 279. Right here where I have the mouse, the cursor, is that the projectile?
Yes.
280, a closer view.
Yes.
281, even closer.
Yes.
282,
Yes.
283. And then 285. Now, in relation to where the blood from the steps to where the projectile, was it kind of like a straight angle?
Sort of. It was on the other side of the lamp and a bit under the ottoman edge. But generally speaking, it was, you could construe that it's in the same area.
286, 87. Just another view of it. Now, at this point, when you find this, to your knowledge, had the bullet in the ribs already been found?
I would have to know. I don't believe so, but I can't remember the time frame. If I knew the metadata and the timestamp, I might could give you a better idea.
But you were not involved with the outside part, just the inside?
I did assist with raking some around the burn pile.
Now, when it goes to the blood trail from the steps down to the projectile area, I think you said there were 3 cleanup areas you noted?
Yes.
And then the rest were the droplets that you noted that we've seen.
Correct.
For the on the blood trail on the floor, evidence marker 1, I think, and evidence marker 2, you took swabs from those. Is that right?
Yes.
And then did you package those and send them off, maintain those, and then send them off to the GBI to be tested?
There were more swabs taken. At that time, I believe there were a total of, they were marked EM1 to EM10.
Right.
And I believe they were a total of 18.
Right. And then I think EM1, EM2, which turns out to be
Yes.
GBI item 14A and 14C.
Yes, correct.
All I'm asking is all the swabs you took, evidence marker 1, evidence marker 2, which is GBI 14A, 14C, those were sent to be tested.
Correct.
And do you know the results of that testing? We've stipulated, you know they're back though, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get to them later on the trial.
Okay.
And you help collect those, maintain those, and then also I think you help baggage and transport everything as we talked about, and that's pretty much what you did on that day. Is that right?
Correct.
And then I believe on July 25th of 2019, about a little more than a year later, you came back. And what'd y'all come back to do?
There was known to be an area on the property that was used for just, I think, what I would assume would be recreational shooting targets type shooting. So we came back to look for and collect possible projectiles and or cartridge casings.
Just trying to match them up, see if you can match it to what was used in the murder?
Correct.
Did y'all collect a bunch of stuff?
We did.
I mean, how much stuff did y'all collect?
I don't recall the quantity of...
But a bunch of different casings, projectiles,
Yes.
and things like that?
Yes.
And did you send all that to the GBI to be tested?
I don't recall, but if it's in the records, then we did.
Right, so some of the stuff you did send for testing.
Okay.
And I believe that's all you did outside of maybe helping with the burn pile, but that was really, I think, Investigator Shaw's
Yes.
task with that.
Yeah.
Judge, you might just have one moment. Judge, nothing else this time.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Asher. My name is Michael Ray. I represent Ms. Ferris. I'm going to go ahead and bring these up to you. You can look at these
Okay.
quickly and just see. Those are the photographs that some of the other photographs that you took as residents and whether or not they're. Really,
Appear to be.
okay. And those are fair and accurate representations of the photographs you took.
Correct.
Okay. So at this point in time, we can move to tender and Thrasher defense 1 through 11.
All right, any objections?
No, Judge.
All right, you're moved.
While I'm doing this, what's your title? Is it like investigator?
Crime scene technician.
That's a lot. I'll just call you Miss Thrasher. How about that?
Okay.
With this house, it's a fairly extravagant house, right?
It's fairly what house?
Extravagant. The furnishings on the inside.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive.
Sure.
Okay. Trying to figure out which one's mine. There we go. Measure. And we'll get to that stuff in just a second. First thing is, because you had testified on direct that you were relatively new back in July 5th, 2018, correct?
Absolutely.
And how long had you been on the job at that point? I missed that.
I don't recall when I finished my last class, but I had probably only been to a handful of scenes prior to that one.
Okay, so only a handful. How much time do you think you had actually in the field being a crime scene tech when you arrived at Purcell?
We did a 40-hour kind of practical type thing before we were signed off, but including that, I would say 70 hours.
And that'd be total?
Probably.
Okay. So about 70 hours in the field when you got there. So when you got there, I know you said that you were kind of working under Shaw and Ballard.
Yes.
Right? Who was actually in charge of the crime scene technicians on July 5th, 2008?
Due to rank, Lieutenant Ballard would have been, but Sergeant Shaw, I think they divided tasks because it was such a large property.
Okay.
So I'm not privy to who decided what.
Okay, so essentially both of them were in charge.
Yeah,
Okay, so you could take orders from either one of them.
absolutely.
Okay, and who was it, Shaw or Ballard, that assigned you your duties? If you don't know, that's fine.
I believe it was Lieutenant Ballard asked me to go photograph the house.
I think it was Ballard. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, first thing I want to go over with was what was Mr. Fogus's Thrasher number 3? Oh, yeah. Because you had walked the property originally, right? But before you started doing your photographs and things like that?
I walked around the house. I did not go to the barn.
Yeah, you didn't go to the barn, but you went around the back of the house and
Yes.
you went over to the barn pile, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so if I'm standing here, you can see on the left side of State's Thrasher 3 that there's kind of a dam leading over the lake, right?
Yes.
And from that dam, you can actually walk straight down or straight essentially toward me and go to the burn pile, correct?
It appears so.
Okay. And on the other side of the dam is the barn. You're that familiar
Yes.
with the property, right? Okay. Now I want to show you Thrasher 15. Okay. So the blood drop at the top of the stairs that you talked about.
Yes.
I've kind of got my, well, it would be a cursor, but now it's a hand.
Sure.
So it's somewhere around where the hand is clicking, right?
Yes.
And that is that solitary single drop, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you actually swab that drop?
I can't tell you for sure. I don't, from the way I remember the evidence being marked, we use the evidence markers on the property or the evidence items. So to my knowledge, I can't say yes or no, but me in particular, no, I would say. If it was, I don't know if it was ever swabbed.
Okay. You definitely.
Okay, so we have hit one of my favorite parts in the testimony where the defense really starts hammering away at what got tested and what didn't and why. And I feel like if they believed that Gary was shot in the basement, then why did they not test that drop of blood at the very top of the stairs? And I know that she testified that she can't say for sure what got tested and what did not get tested. But I feel that she should know. I mean, she was the tech that was tasked with making sure that the evidence was collected and photographed and marked and all of that. Like, so why? I understand that you may have delegated certain tasks, but why weren't you checking to make sure that those tasks were done? Why weren't you sitting with a nice little checklist? I almost wanted to say checkbook, and I knew that wasn't right, but a checklist of, hey, I'm new, so I don't want to miss anything. Oh, we have an evidence marker here. Did we collect this? I don't have a check mark for this on my list. Did we collect it? Go through the evidence, double check the evidence, make sure that you have everything. And maybe it's just my obsessive compulsive disorder, but like, for me personally, I feel like making a checklist for something like this, especially if you're new, is super important to make sure that you don't screw up one of your very first murders. Um, she specifically states that this was one of her very first cases of this magnitude after coming out of training. Um, I'm not going to take up too much time on that, but I did just want to make sure that I talked on it.
Definitely didn't do it.
No.
Okay. And do you recall, because I learned through this case that, and if you're not familiar with it, just say I'm not familiar with that. They've got these, I guess they look like little pregnancy tests, and they kind of come up with lines or a plus, and they can use them for preliminary blood testing.
Blue Star OBTI.
Okay. Did you do that on that solitary drop at the
No.
top of the stairs? Okay. And you didn't do, since you mentioned it, you didn't do any Blue Star testing in the house at all?
I did not.
Okay. Now let me... I'm going to come back to 16. So is the 46 the basement photo that you took? Yes.
That photo in particular is not.
It's not your photo.
It's not my photo.
That is that a photo from one of the Zillow photos, maybe?
It possibly is.
Okay. So you didn't take this photo.
I did not.
Okay. It looks similar to some of your photos, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Such as the ottoman, the blanket on the ottoman, the little blue table thing here.
Yes.
All of that is in some of your photographs too.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Thrasher 68. Okay. This is leading upstairs.
Correct.
Okay. Whose stuff is this?
I do not
Who's
know.
here at the bottom?
That was a picture. That's my task, is taking pictures of the scene as I found it when I walked in.
Okay. So you don't know, this ain't yours.
That's not mine.
Okay. You don't know what it is.
No.
Okay. Now you would also see your number 130. You had taken photos of Melody's car, right?
Yes.
The Toyota. Did you also take any photos of Gary's car?
That was the only car I took photos of.
Okay. Do you know if any of the other techs took photographs of Gary's car?
I do not recall. I don't know.
Okay. If you don't know, that is perfectly fine. Now, number 194, I think. So that's the blood drop at the top of the stairs.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. And this is also the top of the stairs, and this will be Thrasher 195.
Okay.
So, and I'll just look all of the stairs. You didn't take any swabbings or anything from any of the suspected blood drops on the stairs.
I did not.
You didn't.
The markers, I know the evidence was labeled EM1 to EM10.
I'll get to that when we get down the stairs. But at least, let's just say that first set of 12 steps that go down to the landing.
Right.
Right? All right. You didn't take any swabs of any of that suspected blood, right?
I did not.
And there was no...
Again, this is part of the testimony that really got me frustrated with the prosecution, because he's not having to work very hard to dismantle the prosecution's case with this, because they just put somebody who didn't have quite enough experience on this case. I don't feel like this case should have been something for a new person to do alone. I feel like they should have had somebody more experienced helping her, running through a checklist of things with her. I feel like they kind of just threw her to the wolves, and I understand that there are only so many crime scene techs, that there are only so many police officers, that there's just only so much of everybody to go around in each department to go around. But I really feel like if you're going to send out somebody extra, come here, Loki. Oh, Peter. Sorry. Sorry, I had to mute for a second. The neighbor has a bunch of people over, and all we have been hearing for a good majority of today is car doors slamming shut and people on my back patio. And so the dogs have been losing their ever loving mind with it. Another big reason as to why we have been working on Loki's training during the live stream, because that also is not helping anything. So I'm trying to reiterate to him that we still have to stay on task even when there's interesting stuff going on. But back to testimony. I really feel like the prosecution's current case just was not enough. I feel like they just did not put enough effort into finding out what truly happened in this case. I feel like they felt that this was going to be a slam dunk case from the beginning. I feel like they overlooked a lot of potential evidence, how do you not automatically go for testing the suspected blood evidence? Why did nobody take closer up pictures of the medicine on the stairs? Why does nobody know whose medicine that is? If it's Gary's, then that might also point to some of the health issues that Melody is talking about, but nobody knows. And I know that like things like medicine and stuff like that may not seem like a big deal, but everything in something like this where you suspect that it's a murder should be evidence. Everything. Their medicine, what they ate that day, what they drank that day, literally everything should become evidence at that point. All of their clothes, all of their shoes, you know, um, any wounds that they might have. Everything at that point should become evidence. And I know that if they took really good pictures of literally every single item in the house, that it would just be such an innumerable, in however the hell you say the word, innumerable amount of evidence. It would be overwhelming. Um, and I know that it would be even more overwhelming for the system because as they were talking about with this case, um, I believe it was yesterday. I could be wrong. I could have the days mixed up because I've also been catching up on the days that I've missed. But um, their technician, I believe it was for this case. I've been catching up with a lot of cases. It could have been in the Leilani Simon case. Somebody's technician. Um, was talking about how their department alone had over 28,000 pieces of evidence, and how I believe it was the Simon case. I don't think it was this one. I apologize for that. Um, but yeah, they were talking about how there was 28,000 pieces of evidence currently sitting in their evidence locker. And how if you didn't properly label something, it was most likely going to get lost. And how you had to be really focused. I apologize so much, you guys. These two are just being facetious little butts. Um, but yeah, so I mean, and I know probably not every department is going to have that much evidence all in one, but I really feel like they are, I really feel like they are probably already overwhelmed with evidence, and that if they took pictures of every little thing, but I feel also like there should be some sort of standard. Like, you know, if you see medicine bottles, then those are a mandatory thing that you take pictures of. Um, Clothes that are stained should be automatically be something that gets closer images and closer testing. Like, I feel that there should be a standardized checklist so that while you're not closely photographing everything, you're still closely photographing a good majority of what can be identified at a scene as extremely important to potentially test. And then you narrow it down from there. Um, but I feel like they missed a lot of really good opportunities. I feel like if there is a substance that looks like blood, then it should automatically be treated as if it were blood, and you automatically start the presumptive testing. I understand that they would go through a lot more tests that way, but I also feel like it would make for a more concrete evidence and would lead to there being better chances of them convicting the correct person. Because personally, for me, we have far too many innocent people serving life in prison or having been on death row. And I feel like there's got to be a better way to mitigate people going through trials in the first place when they are blatantly innocent. And I'm not saying that Melody Ferris is blatantly innocent, but I believe that with the case that the prosecution has put on so far, that that they haven't really made it a challenge for the defense to tear apart their case. And again, I get that we're still only on day 2, and I understand that the prosecution has slowly gotten better um, with their case. Oh, Bear, please. It's Loki. Um, but like I feel that the prosecution not having a strong start really hurt, not hit, really hurt their case. Um, and I feel like they're struggling to get that momentum back that they lost, and I feel like they lost credibility a little bit because of how hard their case was hit right out of the gate from this. And I feel like this may be a lot for them to come back from. Um, Tell me what you guys think. I'm really interested in hearing um, what everybody else thinks. I mean, I really feel that this case, as far as the prosecution went, was struggling from the start. I don't believe that their case was as solid as they thought it was. And it's really difficult to see because it leaves a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of coincidences that the prosecution just kind of wants you to look the other way on. And there's a lot of questions about a majority of this evidence that they just don't want you to ask and that they're asking for you to ignore. And I feel that the defense in their opening statement, when they made that clear, hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's tough to see. I feel like the prosecution really failed this case. I really feel like the prosecution failed to get to the crux of this case. And I feel like they may be putting a family through more hell than that family should be going through right now. Um, and I feel bad for them because one way or another, whether it comes to light that Melody didn't actually do this and that somebody else did, or if there's no actual proof that Melody didn't do this, and they decide that they want to try it again, either way, the family's going to have to go through a second trial. I very much feel, and I could be wrong, this is just an assumption and an opinion based on the evidence so far. And we're only on day 12. The judge just said yesterday that this was expected to be right on track for a 4 week to a potentially 5 week long trial. So we are just scratching the surface of this trial overall. Um, and I really feel like if the prosecution doesn't have some phenomenal bombshell, then I feel like they are going to lose this case. And I feel that the defense has presented enough evidence to cast reasonable doubt on the prosecution's case. Um, but truly, honestly, I want to hear what you all think. I can't wait. Um, so please put it in the comments. Also put in the comments why you think Melody is or is not guilty. Um, because I went into yesterday feeling like, the defense was sitting at right about like 51-49 or 52-48 in their favor. And after yesterday's calls and a lot of today's calls, I'm right back to straddling the fence. But I still feel like the defense has given enough reasonable doubt in this case so far that this should be a fairly easy win for them. I feel like they are going to get her on an acquittal of some sort or even a like mistrial because the jury can't come to a unanimous decision. Um so yeah, I just feel like they're not going to be able to come to a decision. Um and or if they do come back with a decision, I have a feeling that it will be a not guilty. Um, I really don't feel like the jury is going to be able to reasonably find her guilty, but I could entirely be wrong. Um, this is just my opinion based on the evidence over the last like 12 days. Um, and we can't see the jury, so we truly have no idea um what they're thinking. It's not like, trials in the 90s and 2000s where they always showed the jury and you could see the jury's downright reaction to a court case. And you can't really do that in a lot of the cases these days. And honestly, I'm very grateful for it because there's been a lot of jurors that have had their information leaked and it has then become a not safe situation for them. So I'm really glad that they are doing more to protect the identity of these jurors. Um, but we are going to go back to the video. I'm going to shut up now.
No preliminary testing done on it either.
Not that I know of.
And to the best of your knowledge, the carpeting wasn't removed, so it could be sent off to be tested either, was it?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
Let me just get. One thing here you can see in this photograph, and this is 213. See how the floor, how on this side and over here, that one could be shadow, but it looks like the floor is kind of dusty.
Possibly. I mean, there is debris on the floor, and they have a dog.
Okay.
Exactly. And how many dogs, I think Mr. Fogus had asked you, how many dogs did you see in the house?
I saw one.
Just one? Okay. $279. First off, that little dot right there where the mouse pointer is, that is the
projectile, right?
Correct.
Okay. Who first told you about the projectile?
We started looking, as I stated earlier, Lieutenant Ballard and I were attending to the blood drops. Sergeant Kuykendall came in and started looking, and he was the one that found it.
Kuykendall found it?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know, did Kuykendall move that ottoman at all to find that bullet?
I don't know for sure.
He could have.
Could have.
Okay. Because it's right on the edge of the carpet and almost close to being underneath the ottoman where it is in this photograph of 279, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to come back to these real quick. Back. I'm going to come back to the bullet in just a minute. Now, so even though I know your main task was just taking photographs, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and documenting everything. Did you see any blood on this chair on the right hand of stage 279?
I don't recall seeing any.
Okay. But if you would have documented it, right?
If I saw it, I would have documented it, yes.
There's no blood on the blanket, the ottoman, the little end table?
Not at the time. I did not notice it at the time. The scene was held for 3 more days, and I did not go back out, so I don't know if anybody re-examined that after the fact.
Okay, I'm just talking about what you did. Okay. So you didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the rug, the coffee table, no blood found there.
Not. Okay. No.
And if you let me zoom in here, let's talk about this one, 281. You don't see any blood in this photograph, correct?
I did not at the time.
Okay. But you can also still see the debris and stuff on the
yes.
floor. Okay. You also don't notice any. I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it. There's no impact marks, right? There's no hole for the bullet, right?
At that time, we had not noticed any.
Okay.
So I don't know what was searched after.
Okay. Okay. But at least in this photograph, there's no impact, like there's no skid marks or anything from a bullet.
Not
there's no
in that
hole
area.
or anything in the floor.
Not in that area.
Did you find any bullet holes in the basement?
In the time I was there, I did not.
Okay. And while I've got it, because the way that it was kind of done, see the red tip mm-hmm. on the projectile?
Yes.
Now, how familiar are you with projectiles?
I mean, there's so many different types of ammunition and rounds.
Well, I'm not going to ask you about that.
Okay.
That red, where the little hand is,
yes,
that's not like tissue or blood or anything,
no.
right? It's actually a red polymer, correct?
Right.
Okay. It's actually part of the bullet.
Yes.
Okay. On one side, I just got to flip through till I find. Jeff, off the top of your head, do you know where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, that photo? Oh, there, I got it. There we go. I knew I'd get to it. 251. All right, so position 1 there, when you because we've used some different terms, you keep saying like EM 1 and 2, and I know what you're talking about, and make sure the jury understands. You say like EM 1. We're talking about that one solitary blood drop next to the lamp, right?
Yes.
And EM2 is what is marked on the screen right in the middle of it is number 2.
Yes.
All right. Now, those 2 spots you did take swabs of.
Yes.
Okay. And you package those up and send them off to the crime lab.
Right.
Right. All right. 3 and 4, and then we know going around the corner or going back up the stairs where placard number 5 is, not swabbed, not tested, not taken. To the best of your knowledge, you didn't do it.
Correct.
Okay. Now, past, past number 1 here, if we go, actually, let me do it this way. That down. This number 15. Yeah, number 15. So, going back to state 17, the diagram of the house. So, and I'm just speaking kind of roughly. So around here, kind of in the middle to the right, where the little hand is, that is where that number 1 blood drop was found next to the lamp, right?
Yes, a little bit forward of where you have it, but yeah, generally.
In this just general area.
Yes.
You didn't find any more blood leading to. We've had a joke about this case for a while. I think these are what we're calling the American doors, right here on the right-hand side of the photograph.
Correct.
So there wasn't any additional blood leading that way, correct? That you found?
No.
Okay. There wasn't any blood leading back to the workshop, which is where Gary's office was?
Not that we found, no.
Okay. And there was no blood leading down the hallway toward Gary's bedroom?
Not that
Correct.
we found.
And then, yet again, the suspected blood that you testified about regarding the stairs was never tested?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And the blood at the top of the stairs, you don't recall if it was swabbed or not?
I do not.
All right, now, I don't know about you, but I really find it interesting that he was able to list all of those instances where there either was no additional blood or there was suspected blood and the suspected blood was not tested. I'm sorry, but I don't care if it was 3 instances or 23 instances. That was still more occurrences than should have had happen for big things in this case. I'm sorry, but if you have a pathway to somebody's office where they're probably going to feel safe, why aren't you checking that for any potential evidence? Why aren't you checking to see if there's blood paths going that way? Not necessarily do more in-depth testing, but at least shine a good light down that area and walk with it and make sure that there's no blood drops going that way. Make sure that there's nothing on the walls. Like, why not just go that little extra step or 2? I feel like those extra little steps that got missed or forgotten or just weren't considered important at that time are really going to be the thing that takes down this case. And I feel bad for Gary's family because with that, they may not ever truly have an answer, depending on what the outcome of the case ends up being. If the jury finds that she was guilty or not guilty, I feel if they find her not guilty or come up with like an acquittal or a mistrial or something like that, I feel like that's going to end up being the end of this case because I feel like the prosecution is not going to be able to come up with enough like reasonable evidence to retry her. I feel like they lost their opportunity for that by not collecting as much as they should have at the scene. Um, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is going to hurt the case as much as I'm thinking that it's going to hurt the case? Do you think that it helps the case? Like, I'm really curious as to what you guys think in this. Um, I would really love to hear your perspective because, you know, right now I'm just looking at this from my own personal experiences, and my own personal experiences tell me that there should be more blood, especially if he was shot in the chest in the house like they feel that he was. Um, and I really just am struggling to get past some of that. Um, if you guys feel that she's guilty, can you guys tell me some of the most damning evidence for you? Because so far, everybody that has given me like what they feel is the most damning evidence, I'm able to provide instances where the defense or even the prosecution themselves discredited whatever that person was telling me. And I'm not trying to discredit people, but I do want to keep a realistic, open mind about this, and I don't just want to turn a blind eye to evidence that should be ruled out or beliefs that should not be had because the facts in the case specifically say so. I don't want to be that person that turns a blind eye and then somebody ends up, being convicted of a crime that they potentially didn't commit. Or if they did commit it, they could potentially get off because I turned a blind eye to crucial evidence. And I'm probably never going to be selected as a juror, just because of my love for true crime and the fact that I can't keep my nose out of almost any true crime case. So I would be god awful to put on a jury. Um, but like, I feel that the lack of testing is going to be a big downfall for the case. And I feel like it's already had a really big impact on what the potential future outcome will be of this case. So definitely let me know. I'm curious to hear everybody's viewpoints on this. Um, so I'm going to shut back up. And I'm sorry for interrupting so much, but I feel like these things need to be addressed and these things need to be looked at and scrutinized so that Karen, or not Karen Reed, God, you can tell where my mind's at. Um, so that Melody Ferris can get a fair trial. And this case, in a lot of ways, does remind me of the Karen Reed trial, but I think it's more not because I believe that there was, corruption, but just because I feel like they did not put their best foot forward on this like they should have. Um, and so I really just feel like they missed a really big opportunity. Um, so yes, Loki.
Let me pull up my stuff, and while I'm doing that, when y'all went back out over a year later,
Yes.
who sent you out there?
I was asked by Sergeant Shaw to go. It sounded like at the behest of the DA's office, possibly to see, but I wasn't privy to those conversations. So.
Okay, so maybe somebody at the DA's office. And do you recall when was it you and Eckhart went back out there?
No, there were. It was me and Shaw, and I believe there were several others.
Okay. and you had just collected up essentially a bunch of fragments, bullets, projectiles, and gathered them up and sent them off to the crime lab.
We used metal detectors to find them. There was also a tree that was apparently where a target was leaned up against the tree at some point in time.
What was that leaned up against the tree?
Probably a target that was.
Oh,
I
okay,
think,
yeah. So somebody told you to go and you went.
Absolutely.
All right. All righty. Now, Thrasher Defense 1, did you take this photograph? Because I don't want to confuse you because, Zillow photos get mixed in with other ones.
That does not look like a photo I took, I don't think, but I can't be for sure.
Okay. But you would agree that's the house you were in, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you can see that we'll just presume that this is around July the 5th. There's nothing wrong. There's no damage or anything. You didn't note any damage in your report anywhere in the basement, right?
I don't recall any.
Okay. And number 2, that's just showing the same view, except you can see the ottoman and the table again. And yet again, you didn't find any damage in the chair or the ottoman or anything like that.
I did not.
Okay. Yet again, same thing in 3 and 4. Apparently, you have to pay money to make Adobe want to rotate pictures easily. That is not a free feature.
Pay for anything extra for that.
And this photo too. And one of the things is on that coffee table that was there. There was all these candles and things like that, right?
Yes, I think there was a remote in that dish, maybe.
Yeah, a dish, and you can see there's like a vase there, got a glass or what looks like glass or ceramic lamp too. And you said that, and like while you were there examining that, you didn't see like no broken furniture or anything like that, right?
No.
Same thing, just a different angle. Now here, this is leading to Gary's office, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the doors that I had mentioned, is that where the American doors are, or is that the French doors? All right, so the American doors are over here, and that last blood drop is kind of right in the middle of this photograph, right next to the lamp, right?
Yes.
Okay. And yet again, no blood going this way, toward or down in the photograph, no blood to the left.
None that we found.
Okay. Now this photograph, do you recall, and I'll ask you why in a moment, but do you recall if you specifically took this photograph?
I think I may have. I'm not sure. It's dark outside, so when I was photographing part of these, it had
gotten
gone
dark?
past dark, yes.
Okay. Because I want to ask you about, if you look at this one, if you look at the other one, everything is relatively in place, right?
Yes.
All right, and then this one.
The ottomans moved.
Yeah, so in this one, if you look at the bottom, the ottoman's moved, that
Yes.
blanket is now on the couch, the pillow
Yes.
on the right-hand side of the screen has been, for some reason, taken off the couch. Did you move those things?
I did not. I believe Kuykendall continued to search once we found the projectile. Once
Okay.
he found it.
Because here's another question, because I can't see it. Because when you put down the placards, I don't know when that was. So I don't know if this stuff has been moved before these placards have been put out. You understand?
Right.
So is it before or after? Because I don't know. Is this how the room looked when you walked in? Or did it look put together?
The ottoman had not been moved when I walked down there the first time.
Okay, so it was over here like it is in the other photographs.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea why Kuykendall would move like the pillow and the blanket and stuff like that?
To look under the cushions and things.
And were you there when he did that?
I think I was still down there, but we were taking blood swabs is a tedious task that takes a long time. So
Okay. And well, since Kuykendall's down there moving thing, did you notice or find any additional blood drops, bullet holes, projectiles, anything like that?
I was not informed if they did.
Okay. Number five. Number. And that's just a different angle, right?
Yes.
Okay. Show you Thrasher 9. Okay, that's just the same placards that we had seen
Yes.
that you had put out. And number 9 is just going to be a photograph of the blood drop. Right? Now, did you actually, I don't mean this in a sarcastic way, but did you actually look at the floor, like going down the hall toward the workshop, toward Gary's office? Like actually going like, hey, I'm starting at 4, blood drop, 3, blood drop, 2, blood drop, 1, blood drop. Did you keep going? Like,
Yes.
Hey,
Yes, we would have looked for a continued pattern.
Exactly.
Right.
So that is a logical assumption, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't find that.
No.
Okay. It stopped at 1, or began at 1,
Right.
or it may not be connected at all, right?
Okay. Now, let me know how you guys feel about this one because I feel like he brings up an excellent point with this. Um, she can't really testify to is number 1 the starting point or the stopping point. And she can't really explain why it's this random 4 drops of blood in the middle of the kitchen and there's no additional evidence really anywhere else leading up to or away from that spot. And so I really feel like the defense did a good job asking that question and pointing that out. I feel that they really are able to take off with the prosecution's interpretation of this and really dismantle that without a whole lot of effort. I feel now that we're a little bit later into the trial that they're having to really pull out all of the stops a little bit more. I feel like the defense is having to really, start challenging what the prosecution is putting on, but I still feel overall that the defense is doing an excellent job um, with either Melody guilty or not. Again, I'm still on the fence with that. So, um, but I really feel like they're giving it one hell of a show. Um, and I really feel like the defense has a good opportunity to win here. Um, and some of you may feel differently. And if you do, please tell me because I'm really trying to see this from both sides. And I'm really trying to find that like smoking gun evidence that everybody else feels like there is. And I'm really looking for a way to see that they did not put this family through potential court hell for a case that really doesn't have a chance to stand ground. Um, so, I mean, I'm really, truly interested in everybody's point of view on this because I'm really trying to see this from the perspective of people who support the prosecution, and I'm really struggling. So I would love to hear what evidence that you guys think is that smoking gun evidence. And I really am truly interested to hear why you guys feel that she's guilty. Um, and I also want to know, when did you start believing that she was guilty or innocent? Um, because when I started covering this case, like, I couldn't find a whole lot on it even after it really happened. It's kind of similar to the Nicole Verzi case in that there's not a whole lot of coverage on that case. There hasn't really been a whole lot of coverage on her hearings or anything like that. And I have a feeling that there's not going to be a lot of coverage on the um, on the actual trial in December. Um, Even though it made national news and made Court TV and Nancy Grace and, um, you know, Law and Crime, I feel like it lost the traction that it had initially garnered. Um, and so, there wasn't a whole lot on that case either. And so this case kind of tapered off, because it really didn't have a whole lot of traction, even in the beginning. Like, by, I want to say September, I think, of 2018 was the last that I could really find of anything until her arrest in 2019. And then from like June to like November, um, there really wasn't anything. And it's just like, what? Um, and so I even lost track of what had been going on in the case, because there wasn't really any coverage of her pretrial hearings, not like we have with like Koberger and Sarah Boone and Letitia Staug. And like, there's been pretrial coverage out the butt for a lot of those cases. And there just wasn't anything really in this case. And it's kind of sad to see. Um, but it sure as heck has garnered national attention through the actual court trial. Um, and I don't really believe that they thought that this was going to be under the scrutiny that it is. I don't believe that they expected it to garner as much attention as it has in this particular trial phase. Um, the benefit between this and the Verzi case was people had time to forget about this case before it legitimately went to trial. And in the Nicole Verzi case, um, this crime happened in June of 2024. Um, and the trial is taking place in December of 2024. Um, so, she did not waive her right to a speedy trial like had happened in this case. Um, so yeah, I'm really interested to hear, like, at what point did you believe that she was guilty in 2019 or 2018 and 2019, when the majority of the news was going on in this case? Or did you come to feel that she was either guilty or innocent at a particular point since the trial has started? Um, because I'm sure that the people who have been following this case for a while may have a difference in perspective and potentially even a difference in information in this case. Um, so I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all have to say on that. And I'm going to get back to testimony.
One second, Judge. Mr. Ashton, a couple more quick things. With the, and I'll, maybe I can pull it up, I don't know. With the blood drops, with that numbering pattern, you and Mr. Fogus talked about it briefly. How did you come up with that numbering pattern? Like, why is this one? I guess is my question. Why isn't this top of the stairs one?
There's no real reason other than that's where the curvilinear pattern was. It did not have, we were not stating, as we said before, that is where we thought it began or ended. It just was the easiest path. It appeared to create a path of some manner.
Okay, so fair to say you were in the basement and you had your placards and was like, hey, there's blood drop number one.
You would be correct.
Okay. So basically just the easiest way to do it.
Yes.
Okay. So now you've been, I know you were relatively new when you first started. Now you've been doing this, what, another 6 years?
Yes.
Okay. Learned a lot more?
Whole lot more.
Gotten a lot better?
Yes.
Now, would it be reasonable, now, if you went out to Purcell Lane, that you would have been swabbing all of those spots?
I would have probably swabbed more, perhaps, but I was, as I stated, I was new and was following the lead of who I was working with.
People.
And it was a large scene, so that was held for several days.
Yeah, was it, because it was a large scene, because there was a lot of people there, weren't there?
Yes.
While you were there, how many investigators do you think were there?
Between investigators beyond the crime scene unit, 5 or 6, I really couldn't, I stayed in my area generally, and don't know who was called in and exactly where they were.
Would it be a fair assessment that, it's fairly a chaotic scene, a lot going on, a lot of people running around?
I wouldn't call it chaotic. It was
Busy could be a better word.
busy.
Okay. A lot going on?
Yes, you have to, but there were people that have been doing this a long time and were in charge of making sure it was constructive.
Well, you also had Miss Eckhart here too, right?
Yes.
You and her were kind of doing this together?
Yes, she was with me as I took photos and took some notes, and then she did more at the burn pile than I did.
Okay. And one or two more questions. With since this,
yes,
over the course of your career now, have you ever had to take something from a crime scene, such as, I need to take up this piece of flooring or this piece of carpet
yes,
to send it off from the crime lab?
Yes.
You have done that?
I don't know if I've taken carpeting, but I've cut pieces of wall before to find.
Okay, cut the drywall out?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this case, just for example, you could have, or your superiors could have cut sections of the carpet out to send it off for testing.
It's always a possibility, yes.
Okay. Nothing further at this time.
All right. Thank you, Judge. Technician Thrasher, let me just go back through some so we can get on the same page here. All right, do you see these are Thrasher? We begin with 1, and we go all the way to Thrasher 65.
Yes.
Let me make sure I get this. All right. All right, Thrasher 47. So we get from 1 to 47. Those are where your photographs begin, right?
Yes,
The
47.
ones up to that are from realtor.com, whatever it is.
Yes.
All right, so the jury's not confused. 1 through 46 are things that were taken from online, and then yours begin at Thrasher 47.
Correct.
And then you also took the ones that the defense put up, the ones that he showed, except for one that may have been from that previous one.
Right.
Now, when you were there and asking questions, the defense was asking questions about the numbering, and if you had done things differently or gone back. Everybody probably would do things differently in many ways. Would that be fair to say that in some cases you were like,
Yes.
I'd do this or that? But when you look at what you believe to be blood in the basement,
Yes.
Thrasher 251. When you look at those placards and you saw the blood there, fair to say, all right, we're down here in the basement with evidence marker EM1. We're going to put it right here and we're going to work our way because 9 is back at the top of or 10 is back at the top of the
Right.
stairs, right? Why?
Okay, so I just want to stop and apologize because I got the location wrong. It was in the basement, not in the kitchen. It was in the like basement bar kitchen area. And they believe that he was shot in the basement, but here is still my issue. This is still a really big hang up for me. Why, if he was shot there, is there no real blood anywhere else, minus a singular drop at the top of the stairs? One singular drop. Uno. Like, so if he was shot in the basement, why was there not more blood? And why was there no blood really going up the stairs? These wounds are going to bleed a lot. He has a higher chance of having an artery nicked, having a ventricle nicked, nicking the heart, the lungs. Like, he was shot in the chest. It could have hit the spinal cord. It could have hit a lot of things. And a large majority of the things that could have hit would have caused significantly more bleeding. So I'm just really confused as to where is all of this blood. And you can say that Melody Ferris cleaned it up, but if he was killed, because remember, they can't really narrow down exactly when he was killed. The prosecution stated in their opening statements that they believe that he was killed July 4th into July 5th. They also claim that Melody Ferris was home by herself. And if their timeline is correct and he was murdered sometime between July 4th and July 5th, Melody Ferris was not home by herself. She was at home with her granddaughter Addison and Addison's cousin Cameron. And so, and I don't remember if the cousin Cameron was one of Melody's other grandchildren or what, but I do remember that it was Addison and Cameron that were there. And so it just, how do you keep two young girls from hearing the gunshots? What about, how do you mask the screaming of somebody dying in a fire? Like, there's a lot. Because he had to have been unconscious to not have been screaming. Because I'm sorry, burning to death is painful. And I'm so sorry for anybody that this may trigger. Anybody that had a loved one die that way. my heart goes out to you because it's one of those things where it is a really awful way to die. It is very, I'm not going to mince words, but it is just, it's bad. And it's traumatizing to have to even think about what somebody could have gone through. And I'm a very empathetic person, and so I find it very hard not to put myself in somebody else's shoes. And I feel so bad for anybody who has had to experience that particular death. And I feel bad for the loved ones of anybody. And I wouldn't wish something like that on even my worst enemy. Um, you know, and there's just some things in life that I really wish that we could prevent. And some of the most horrific ways to die are one of the things that I really wish that we could prevent. Um, you know, I wish there was just like a magic pill to fix these instances and keep them from happening. And I know that there's not realistically, but it's heartbreaking to consider what Gary potentially went through in his final moments. And if Melody is guilty, she is extremely cold-blooded because she has been very stoic and very calm and very decisive through all of this. So if she is guilty, like, I feel equally as bad for her family still because they have to deal with somebody so cold-blooded. Now, I don't know what the story is with Amanda to where uh, Amanda still stands by her mom. I don't know if that is because Amanda knew more or saw more of her parents' relationship than the other siblings are willing to admit. Um, I know in the calls today that it was stated that Amanda and Gary didn't have a very good relationship because Amanda was the most like Melody. Um, and so maybe that played a part in why Melody is not disillusioned by what's going on with the prosecution. Um, Maybe she is delusioned. I don't know. I just know that according to all of the reports, Amanda is still to this day supporting and being supportive of her mother. Um, and so to me, I think that that speaks volumes. There's something to be said about the black sheep of the family. Um, I'm really considered the black sheep in my family. My husband is considered the black sheep in his family. And, you know, one of the things that we strive for, being the black sheep, is not letting the things that we see happen within the family dynamic continue that we feel could be potentially harmful to our children in the future or teach them the wrong lesson about how you should treat other people in life or something that is hurtful that could be hurtful for our children. We don't continue those types of traditions. We go against the grain and we try to heal generational traumas. We try to teach our children that there is a better way. Um, and so I feel like Amanda being considered the black sheep of the family, very well may have opened her eyes more to what was going on between her parents. Um, versus her siblings, because maybe what Melody said in the phone calls was true. Maybe it was more contentious between Amanda and Gary, um, because she very well may have been the most like her mom. If the domestic violence aspect that Melody was talking about was true, even though it wasn't necessarily physical. There was still emotional and financial abuse going on. And our kids see that. Our kids watch more than we think. And all it takes is one person within a family dynamic to decide to be disillusioned from the truth within the family to really know what's going on and be able to stand by somebody like Melody Ferris. Um, and so it really makes me wonder what was truly going on in that house, what the true dynamic was. Because according to Chris and according to Scott and according to Emily, like their parents, while there was affairs going on, had a happy go lucky, perfect marriage. Um, and Melody, or not Melody, Emily, Chris, and Scott all say the same thing, that their dad wasn't the one having an affair, that it was their mom. While even their dad's mistress admitted to the affair, um, even just for a short time. And so it really goes to show kind of the dynamics. And if you think about it, Emily, Chris, and Scott all received some sort of fairly significant financial help at some point in their adult lives from their father. Their father was fully funding Scott's lifestyle. They were at least partially funding Chris's, and they were at least partially funding Emily's. Now we haven't really heard a lot about any financial help that Amanda got or anything, and I don't even know if Amanda's going to testify or not. But I'm honestly really interested in seeing what happens when she does. I do know that they had Addison testify, um, and I'm really looking forward to going through and listening to that again. Um, yeah, I'm just really excited. And I know that they had Addison come on a second time from the last time that they had her on, which that's the one that I'm really looking forward to, because I did catch part of that. And in part of that, Addison admits that her and Cameron on the 4th went looking for her grandfather and couldn't find him anywhere. So that means that he was already missing by the time that Addison and Cameron got to um her grandma's house. And so it really makes you see things from a different perspective hearing something like that. Because again, I don't really feel that a body could be concealed for that long. Um, and I really feel like if Gary was killed earlier in the day on July the 4th, that Melody wouldn't have had enough time to clean up. And so I'm wondering, are these blood splashes that are around from whoever actually killed him? Did they have some sort of injury? And, you know, or were they covered in Gary's blood so much that these droplets happened within the house? And that would explain why it's just in random spots. Um, and so I'm really interested in seeing exactly how they testify to the DNA evidence. I only caught bits and pieces. of that testimony due to other obligations that I had. But so I don't really want to talk too much about, you know, what everything was found to be quite yet until we get to that day in the testimony. Um, but at least for now, these are just the perceptions that I have made based on the information that we have been given up to day 2. So I am going to mute myself and go back to day 2. If you guys have any comments, questions, anything like that, feel free to put it in the chat. I am watching the chat while we are watching this, and I will gladly answer any questions or anything that you might have. Yeah, and without further ado, let's continue with the testimony.
You were looking at that thing, and all of a sudden did you go, oh my goodness, that blood doesn't look like that blood, or that was totally different than that?
No, I did not.
Did you think that was really old, this one's really new?
No.
Did it ever cross your mind that these things weren't connected or related, or one was out of place as another one wasn't?
No, it did not.
And EM1, evidence marker 1, evidence marker 2, that those were taken and tested, and we're going to get the results of that test to see if it matches anything else down there too, right?
Right.
And if you did it over and you swabbed that blood, it's either his blood or someone else's blood.
Right.
Right? I guess it could be not blood, but definitely the ones that were tested, they're going to come back to wherever they are, right?
Right.
Oh, I am so sorry. I thought I muted. I have like a dry spot in my throat, and I was coming back over to make a comment, but um, before I fixed the dry spot in my throat by taking another drink, um, I'm really interested in this particular line of questioning because I really feel like this was a very weak attempt at I feel like this was a very weak attempt at the prosecution trying to make the evidence fit. Like, just because the other blood samples that you took are going to come back as either Gary Ferris or somebody else, or potentially even an animal, um, that doesn't mean that the suspected blood will also come back as Gary Ferris or somebody else. Like, that may come back that it's horse blood, or that, like maybe the neighbor's goat got hit 6 months ago and Gary rescued it and took it to the vet, and when he got back, he went down to take off his clothes and get a shower and potentially, you know, got blood from the goat on the side of the wall. Like, and this is why I feel like they should have tested a lot of this. Hold on, I gotta take a quick drink because I'm about to cough again if I don't. All right, I'm so sorry. Um, I'm not used to talking this much. I only ever get to talking a lot when it's true crime related, um, because this is just my forte. Um, but I really feel like you can't say that one suspected blood spot is exactly that, just because other ones at the scene tested that way. For all they know, it could have been paint that was spilled by the girls, and it just happens to look like blood. Like, you don't know unless you actually test the evidence. And the fact that she was sent back again a year later, like, how good is any potential DNA evidence or fingerprints or anything like that going to really be after a year? Like, there is a lot of dust that can settle and a lot of things that can alter DNA and fingerprints and saliva. And I mean, there's just so much that breaks down even just from the temperature changes within an environment or how much humidity is within an environment. And so I really feel like this was a flimsy attempt to regain control of their case by the prosecution. And I really feel like they could have done better with that. Um, But honestly, I'm interested to hear. Do you guys think that the prosecution's doing a good job? If so, why? Um, what do you see that you like about the prosecution on this? Um, and I'm really excited to be able to go through the defense's case like this as well. Because I'm sure that there's going to be things that irritate me about the defense as well once we get to the defense actually putting on their case. And so um, I feel like it will give me a chance to nitpick at the defense as well, so it doesn't seem like I'm just picking on one side or the other. Um, and honestly, I'm from what I'm seeing so far in the case, I feel like the failed prosecution's delivery of the case is really going to make things easier for the defense. But I'm really curious to see, does the defense slack off because they feel like this is an easy win when it comes time for their case? And do they get sloppy at that point? Or do they still continue to barrel through the prosecution's case like a freight train? I mean, so far, I feel like the defense has done a pretty good job of counteracting any potential damage that the prosecution has done to their case so far. And I feel like they've really done a good job of casting reasonable doubt on a lot of the prosecution's witnesses so far. A good majority of these witnesses, you see the prosecution doing some sort of redirect because they just see how the defense has screwed their position. And in a couple of these, you just see the prosecution and the defense go back and back and forth with, redirect because it's just such a flimsy attempt to redirect their case for the prosecution. And it's usually like one or two questions by the defense, and they've got their answer and they've re-won the jury back in their potential favor. Like, and so it's just one of those situations where I feel that the prosecution needs to really step it up here. I'm really excited to see what they do when they get to cross-examine the defense's witnesses. I'm really excited to see if they do actually step up their game. Um, what do you guys think? Do you think the prosecution's going to step up their game? Do you think that Do you think that with the prosecution, hold on, Loki's gonna bark. Okay, I apologize. There's a whole bunch of kids playing outside. Um, and Loki likes to bark at them sometimes. And we are trying to work on that during this live stream as well. But um, do you think that, and again, this could just be me grasping at straws, trying to make it not seem like the prosecution has had a giant blunder so far of a case. Um, but what do you think the odds are that the prosecution is kind of laying low and not really fighting this too much until the defense puts on their case? What do you think the chances are that they are laying low to come out like vipers um, in the long run and just tear the defense's case apart? Um, who thinks that that's the strategy? I mean, I know it seems like an off the wall strategy, and it probably is. And again, I am potentially grasping at straws, hoping that the wheels of justice have not brought a trial to fruition that should not have happened. And so I understand that I could very well just be grasping at straws and that the prosecution's case is really as pitiful as I feel like it is. Um, and I'm really trying to be very fair to both sides. I really am. And it kills me right now that the prosecution is just not at their best. Um, yeah, it's frustrating. Um, but we are going to go back to the testimony. Oh man, I
The attacks
apologize.
against Bob Casey are not true.
Bob Casey
Yeah.
has voted repeatedly to secure the border.
Say I'm not familiar with that. They've got these, I guess they look like little pregnancy tests, and they kind of come up with lines or a plus.
Sorry, Loki pushed a button while he was rolling all over my bed with his big paws. I love him, but he's being a pain. So I'm going to re-find where we were, and I'm so sorry.
251. When you look at those placards and you saw the blood there, as you were, fair to say, all right, we're down here in the basement with evidence marker EM1. We're going to put it right here and we're going to work our way because 9's back at the top. Blood, but definitely the ones that were tested, they're going to come back to wherever they are, right?
Right.
All right, Thrasher 47. So we get from 1 to 47. Those are where your photographs begin, right?
Yes,
The
47.
ones up to that are from realtor.com, whatever it is.
Yes.
All right, so the jury's not confused. 1 through 46 are things that were taken from online, and then yours begin at Thrasher 47.
Correct.
And then you also took the ones that the defense put up, the ones that he showed, except for one that may have been from that previous.
Right.
Now, when you were there and asking questions, the defense was asking questions about the numbering, and if you had done things differently or gone back. Everybody probably would do things differently in many ways. Would that be fair to say that in some cases you were like,
yes.
I'd do this or that? But when you look at what you believe to be blood in the basement,
Yes.
Thrasher 251. When you look at those placards and you saw the blood there, as you were, it's fair to say, all right, we're down here in the basement with evidence marker EM1. We're going to put it right here and we're going to work our way because 9 is back at the top of or 10 is back at the top of the stairs, right? While you were looking at that thing, then all of a sudden did you go, oh my goodness, that blood doesn't look like that blood, or that was totally different than that?
No, I did not.
Did you think that that was really old, this was really new?
No.
Did it ever cross your mind that these things weren't connected or related, or one was out of place as another one wasn't?
No, it did not.
And EM1, evidence marker 1, evidence marker 2, that those were taken and tested, and we're going to get the results of that test to see if it matches anything else down there too, right?
Right.
And if you did it over and you swabbed that blood, it's either his blood or someone else's blood.
Right.
Right? I guess it could be not blood, but definitely the ones that were tested, they're going to come back to wherever they are, right?
Right.
That's all I have to.
Anything else? All right, you sit down. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You got a short witness, or you want to take a break?
Longer witness.
All right, let's take we'll try to keep the 5-minute recess to 10 minutes. And y'all can step out and use the other jury room. And I'm going to come down and mess with the mouse. So y'all can use it as a... All right, call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please, of course, second call Chris Shaw. So raise your right hand. These solemnly swear affirm the evidence you about to present in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
All right, I've replaced your cursor with a with a large magenta arrow. You're welcome.
You would state your full name for the record.
My name is Christopher Michael Shaw.
Now, where do you work right in the moment?
I'm currently a police officer with the Cherokee County School District Police Department, assigned to Cherokee High School.
And what do you do at that job?
I am the main campus SRO for Cherokee High School. So I'm charged with safety and security of the main campus and all the surrounding areas of Cherokee High School.
How long have you been doing that?
I'm in my third school year.
And prior to that, did you work for the sheriff's office?
I did. I was employed with the Cherokee Sheriff's Office for 15 years.
When did you go to the academy to become post-certified?
In 2003.
Tell us, if you would, starting with where'd you go to the academy?
I went to North Central Law Enforcement Academy at Treadmill Mall.
And after you graduated from that, where'd you go?
The Holly Springs Police Department, where I completed FTO and was assigned to uniform patrol.
And how long did you do patrol?
I did patrol at Holly Springs for a year. Then I went to the Woodstock Police Department, where I was employed for 4 years. I was a canine officer and a member of the A-10 Traffic Enforcement Network and assigned to uniform patrol. In July of 2007, I went to the Cherokee Sheriff's Office, where I was first assigned to the Waleska Precinct and then to the Bridgeville Precinct. And in 2008, I was selected to become a member of the Violent Crime Unit. At the end of 2008, we combined ourselves with the Criminal Investigations Division, where I remained until 2021.
So did you work in the jail capacity at all, or were you straight to the...
I was one of the agency's first lateral hires at the Sheriff's Office, so I do not have any formal time in the adult detention center.
Okay, so because you have police experience, you were able to come in and just go to patrol?
Yes, sir.
Done patrol, is that right?
Yes.
Done canine?
Yes.
So that's a specialization?
Correct.
Then got into investigations?
Yes.
Was it like a suppression team in the beginning, or just pure investigations?
No, I went straight to the Violent Crime Unit. They were charged with investigating all crimes against persons that did not fall into the domestic violence category as part of the overall criminal investigations.
When you went into the investigations, did you have to take any type of particular training, or do like investigations 1, 2, 3, or what type of training did you have to be an investigator?
So we start our experience trying to figure out your path. I went to the GIPSTIC's first 1 week criminal investigations course. They condensed it from 2 weeks to 1 week and started there. Prior to that, I had taken training in domestic violence and law enforcement officer response. But you get that basic training not only from the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, but then also through your agency and through senior detectives who are teaching you how to work cases with your agency and introducing you into the court systems, learning how your court is going to prosecute and work those cases. And so it's a lot of on-the-job training, and then from there you can go into specializations.
Did you go into type of specialization for the investigations?
I did. I went to crime scene school, and I took crime scene processing down in Warner Robins and started to really enjoy it, and that's where I started my foray into crime scene processing and becoming a state-certified crime scene investigator.
What attracted you to do what I call the CSI crime scene?
I like putting puzzles together, trying to figure out, working with the detectives, helping them answer those questions that needs more time to answer. And I'm afforded that time working that crime scene.
When you first got into crime scene processing or crime scene investigations, you said you went to classes and things like that, and I think you said you were certified or went down, I guess, the professional track. What level of experience at 2018, in July 2018, tell the jury, give us a kind of your resume, what level of experience you have for crime scene investigations at that time?
I was a state-certified crime scene investigator. I attained that in 2010.
And let's start with that. What does that mean? What did you have to do to get that?
That means I completed the state's original prerequisites for becoming a crime scene investigator. It was a total of 6 classes. You then, once you complete those classes, you have to fill out a post application through the Police Officer Standards and Training Council. It's then submitted along with your post transcript that's like our school records for all of our training, plus our certificates to show that it is in fact the prerequisite courses. Someone from my agency has to sign off on it and attest that I am actually working crime scenes. So during my training, I'm working crime scenes with another certified crime scene investigator.
Almost like being an apprentice in some ways.
It is, because they require 40 hours as well, which I completed at the Gwinnett County Police Department in their crime scene investigation unit. So once I have all those hours, so right there is close to 300 hours just in basic formal training. That's not counting all the time that I'm working with another crime scene investigator, learning my craft. That's taking pictures, mapping crime scenes, that's looking at lots of latent prints, dusting for latent prints, and all that stuff that comes along with the types of investigations that we do here in Cherokee County. And so you complete that, the state sends you back a certificate saying, congratulations, you're now a state certified crime scene investigator.
Now, when you're certified, is that where everybody gets a trophy, or is it you just show up and get it, or does it actually have standards and difficulties?
No, you have to pass the classes, and they require a practical and a cognitive test during the fingerprinting portions. Photography requires a cognitive and a practical exam to pass the class, and if you don't pass those, you get sent home. You have to wait a year to take them again.
What kind of practicals and tests and things do you do?
During the fingerprinting portion, during classification, you have to classify 10 fingerprint cards, and so when I was going through in 2009, we were still doing the Henry classification. That is a manual classification that was created back in the 1800s by Henry in India to ensure that the workers in the British-controlled Indian continent were getting paid and not having people come and double dip and take money. And so we've taken that classification. We use that worldwide, and we had to do that by hand. And you have to get all 10 right. And if one's wrong, that's it.
Did you have to do like oral presentations, anything like that?
Not during the basic classes. That was in my advanced classes that I go to later.
So after basics, you're qualified as a state at the lowest level, I guess. I don't mean anything against that, just level 1, I guess. Did you go into a more advanced class?
Well, the state only has one level. What they did was they changed some of their prerequisites for the certification, and I took that additional class. And that additional class was the bloodstain pattern and analysis class, and that's a 40-hour basic class. That's your introduction to bloodstain pattern analysis. I went ahead and took it, even though I was grandfathered in under the old state certification. I took that class.
If you didn't have to do it, why'd you do it?
It's important to my craft. It's crime scene, and what we do is a physical science. It's a forensic science. It's constantly evolving and moving. And so if, as a forensics investigator, I don't stay up to date on current trends, I will fall behind, and I will either not see something that needs to be seen, collected, documented, or worse, just completely mess something up in a scene because I'm looking for one thing instead of knowing that the science has changed and changing my way of processing a scene to fit the current sciences.
Do you challenge yourself in your craft and what you do? Do you always try to get better, always sharpening the sword?
When I was running the unit, I read a lot of white pages because the science was changing so fast that I was constantly on the phone with my fellow colleagues going, hey, I ran into this. This is what I did, and I failed miserably in the lab. What are y'all doing? And so constantly bouncing ideas off my fellow crime scene investigators and being able to call them and going, hey, I'm running into this and I'm having difficulty. What do you think? In collaborating with other crime scene investigators to help collect this forensic evidence.
At the time in 2018, were you teaching or educating other people how to do crime scene investigations?
I was. In 2015, I had the opportunity to attend the National Forensics Academy at the University of Tennessee. I'm a graduate of Session 39. That's another 400 hours of training over 10 weeks from people across the country who are experts in their fields. And this is photography, latent print development, mapping, human remains recovery. Everything that we could possibly do, we got it in 10 weeks, and we got to train with people from all over the country. I did not get to participate in an international session, but we had people from as far away from Anchorage, North Dakota, Army, CID. I got to train and collaborate with all these individuals.
Did you make networks and have, work studies with peers that you, as you talked about, you could learn more from and bounce ideas off of?
Yes, sir.
Did you do any training locally for people, law enforcement, and crime scene?
We would host training at the sheriff's office, especially when we started to get new equipment. Our first one was we got our first Faro 3D scanner. We got that in 2015, the weekend before I reported to the National Forensics Academy. And then again, when we got our infrared cameras that they have at the sheriff's office, we were able to hold training on how to manipulate those new camera systems designed specifically for crime scene investigation.
I want to turn your attention on July 5th of 2018, the date that you got involved in this case. Were you the lead crime scene investigator in this case?
Yes, sir.
Who all else was, first of all, 2511 Purcell Lane, about what time did you get out there?
I believe I got out there about mid-afternoon-ish, sometime between 3 and 4, I believe.
I got about 15:33 here on my notes, so about 3:30, give or
Yes,
take.
sir.
And when you got out there, what do you remember when you first arrived?
So I remember we went down a long driveway. My deputies had parts of the driveway secured off. We had some detectives there, and I was just told, hey, we have a pile here to the left side of the house we need you to go look at. The detectives really didn't have a firm idea of what was going on at that moment. And I said, sure, we'll walk out there and see what we got.
I did pull up some photographs that already been admitted into evidence. This is aerial 3. You follow the pointer here. Can you see that pointer?
Yes, you can see the point.
When you go up the driveway here, you're talking about you came up, and then right here would be the garage and the house. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then the burn pile was back over here in the woods over here.
Yes.
This is aerial 16. I'm going to fast forward. You come around the left side of the house. And what I can do is I'm going to fast forward just to the So it's aerial 16. Basically where this drone is that kind of how the layout from the burn pile to the house? Is that what it looks like? Now this was a year later, but...
Yes, that was, even being a year later, it was still the same distance. Nothing had changed other than we had progressed a year.
If you were to walk from the house to the burn pile, are you going downhill or uphill?
You were going downhill, a slight downhill angle.
Then aerial 17. You got the doors on the left, the ones I'm calling the American doors, to the right, the French doors, and then as this keeps turning to the right, the burn pile will be back down that way. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What did you know you were looking at, or what y'all were dealing with when you first arrived? I know it changes at some point, but when you first get there, what's going on?
So when I walk up to the to what we called the pile. We have this burn pit. I can still feel heat radiating off of it, and I can see what appears to be a set of skeletal remains sitting on top of this pile. There appears to be construction debris and all this other miscellaneous garbage in this pile, but it's very clear to me that I was looking at a set of skeletal remains on the left side. I immediately got everybody to back out, and then started to request additional assets as I'm starting to size up my scene and determine how I'm going to try and recover these remains in a forensic manner.
When you were first called out, were you respond to a person in need of help, or what was the call?
It was a death investigation that they were not sure of what they had.
When you get out there, do you remember the temperature of the taken from the burn pile when you got out there?
I know it was initially warm off me, so one of the things that I did request was have one of the fire investigators come out, someone come out with thermal to give me a temperature. When they were finally able to get out there, it was still over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, with daylight still up at that time.
So still hot?
Still hot.
You back everybody out, then what happens from there?
I requested through my chain of command to contact a set of skeletal.
Okay. Now, I feel like this is really important. He mentions that when he gets there, the fire is still hot. Now, in later testimony, they mention that part of the fire, I believe, was like 86 degrees, and the like smoldering part was at that time like 280 plus degrees. And they said that the temperatures were so hot that it did not leave much left of the body. And so it really leaves you to wonder, how long was this fire burning? How hot was this fire? Like there's just a lot of unanswered questions with this case, and I really struggle to get past some of these because I just feel like there isn't enough evidence. And I know I keep going back to that, but it's because I'm looking for something that clearly points to Melody absolutely did this. And I'm just not finding it. But what I am finding is things that cause a significant amount more of questions than actual answers. And I'm kind of wondering, am I the only one that feels like this? Are there other people that feel like this? And what everybody's perspective is on it. I am going to go until the next break, and then I'm going to call it for the night. Because I do have to be up fairly early tomorrow. Our kids have a dentist appointment, and so tomorrow is going to be a really busy day. I also will not be I apologize. I also will not be live streaming tomorrow. We will go back to our normal live stream on Thursday. So yes, I very much am looking forward to that. And we're going to go back to the testimony.
Remains.
And why did you call Dr. Goody? What was about her that made you call her?
Well, one, she's the state forensic anthropologist. This is definitely well inside her wheelhouse. And two, I'd never done this outside of a training environment. I did not know what I had. I know I had a set of skeletal remains on a pile. It was radiating heat at over 200 degrees. I don't know how this person got there and how they got to the state. And I'm not so far in my ego to go, I can do this on my own without calling experts who I know are going to, one, help teach me how to properly document this, but to ensure that we properly document and collect this entire set of remains. And for me, that's important because that person has a family. I want to make sure we're doing our absolute best to ensure that we do this correct, because we only have one chance to do this. And so if I can call help, and that help is here in our state, I'm going to use it.
Had you ever had a crime scene like this before?
I'd never worked a crime scene like this. I have burned 2 self-immolations in my career, and that is suicide by fire. I have worked those, but never one to this scope where I have both fire and skeletonized remains in an area that I know I need to properly document and recover.
Did you know of Dr. Gooding, a reputation or anything, or what was it about her that made you know that she does this type of stuff?
So through our crime scene community, we knew that Dr. Gooding, one, was in charge of the crime scene work at KSU. She's the lead instructor down there. She has been going in with the Georgia Public Safety Training Center and starting to teach similar classes that students would get at the NFA here at the local level for our local crime scene investigators. And a lot of the classes that she had been teaching and that we had been pushing are scattered recovery remains and what we call buried recovery remains. She was able to teach those classes at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center down in Monroe County. She was coming to a lot of our, I had heard her speak at the Georgia IAI conferences because I'm a member of that. And so that's where I started to learn what her mission, what her outlook was. And she said, anytime you need us, call. We all had her number. She made it known that we could call her for a consult. And if we needed help doing a recovery, because she was the state's forensic anthropologist, we could call her. And I did.
And did she come?
She did.
What is she like? What's her personality like?
She's an educator, but she's awesome. She did bring one of her master's candidate students, and she was very nice to ask permission before allowing that master's candidate student into the scene. They are all vetted through her program, so that person is documented in my report. But she shows up with all her gear ready to go. And so I actually had to, tell her, okay, hold on. I got to lay some groundworks for what we're doing because it's still our case. But I did call her for help. But she is super outgoing. She's very easy to talk to. And she started explaining stuff to myself and my lieutenant again, and it started to come back to us as we're laying certain lines to start setting up our recovery. But ultimately, because she's the state forensic anthropologist, I let her take lead on that. That's her purview, because she's also going to catalog those remains. She's going to make sure we document the complete skeleton, and she's going to make her notes because she's going to produce a report for us too, because this is a police investigation.
Growing up, I liked to watch things like Indiana Jones, and when they would go to a site, and they would be systematic and have little brushes, little picks, and things like that. How would you describe Dr. Gooding's system as she would get in and start doing stuff? What was that like?
Exactly the way I was taught at the National Forensics Academy, because she helped teach up there, and that we do use brushes. What you do see in that is actually real. Had this been a buried, we would have had a 5-gallon bucket, and it would have taken several hours to do this. But we have our lines laid, and everything's broken down into grids, and we don't move from one grid to another until she says it's clear, and she's got her catalog going. And so it's very systematic. It's fast.
Okay, I know I talked about this yesterday, but as somebody who really loves organization, I truly cannot praise Dr. Goody enough for her use of this grid system. because she was able to go through and meticulously catalog each section of these grids. She had a temperature for what the fire was in particular parts of the grid. And that's where I got my information about how the fire was hotter on the right side than the left side. Um, and how the left side was like 86 degrees or whatever it was, and the right side was 280 plus, if I remember her words correctly. Um, which I felt was so interesting because, I'm trying to understand how one um one section of this could cool so much faster than the other. Um, and it makes me wonder how big of an area it really was. Um, Even from the diagram that she has and the grid system that she shows, um, it still is very difficult for me to fully picture exactly how big this burn pile was. And I haven't seen enough of the evidence of the burn pile to be able to say, like, exactly where Gary's body was, how Gary's body was laying. And honestly, I'm really glad that I have not seen those portions of the autopsy photos, because I already empathize enough with the horrendousness of the crime, um, that I don't know if I would be able to handle seeing the autopsy photos on that one. Um, and so I have purposefully been avoiding them. I even avoided requesting them in my FOIA, um, as well for this case. Same thing with the Nicole Verzi case. I am not requesting the autopsy photos because there's just certain things in true crime that I cannot do. I can do a lot. Um, but autopsy photos are just the one thing that I can't. But I really feel like this grid was a huge benefit to this case. Um, and I feel like Dr. Goody's way of cataloging was a huge benefit to this case and the prosecution's case. I feel that Dr. Goody was a very good witness for the prosecution. There was a lot that she couldn't explain that the defense did get her on, but ultimately, I would say so far she has been one of the prosecution's um, most beneficial witnesses. And honestly, kudos truly to Dr. Goody because she really had a lot of foresight with this case, and I greatly appreciate her contribution to this case because she did lay out a lot. Um, I wish she was a little bit more visual. In the way that she talks about things so that I could kind of picture it better, but I totally understand that that is not something for everybody. But I'm going to go back to the testimony, and I'm really interested in hearing everybody's thoughts. I know we have a couple people watching. If you, haven't already, or if you want to lurk, feel free to lurk. But I would love, honestly, to hear everybody's opinion of the case.
but it's slow where we can make sure we're accurately documenting everything.
She would take the burn pit, did she divide it into 4 quadrants or 4 sections?
Yes.
And how, would you rope it off, or what were we going to see in the photographs?
So what we do is we start to lay what we call a datum line. That's our north-south line. So you're going to see orange string, and you're going to see it broken into quadrants, and you're going to see arrows indicating north. And what we're doing is we're trying to express in 2 dimensions something that is 3-dimensional. So when we attack a scene like this, we're looking at it on 3 axes. We're looking at it from length, from width, but we also want to show height and depth. That way we can explain how far down certain remains are. And it's more defined when we're actually in a vault recovering from the ground. But we still do it on a scattered because we want to show how far or how close something is in relation to the central mass, if you will. So if we have a large mass in the center, we're going to say that's the center, and then we're going to measure out and say our furthest point is 6 feet down and 8 feet across. And if I can show you that in 3 dimensions on a picture, it makes it easier than just reading off numbers. And so that's why we lay these lines. We also split it into quadrants to make it easier for us to tackle a large scene so that we don't forget anything.
What kind of tools or things did you use to do this? Did she bring anything?
She brought all her tools, but sifters, buckets, garden trowel, stuff you would find in the gardening center of any Home Depot, Lowe's, or Walmart. That's what we use. Now, they're all clean and sterile, and she brings them with her. But it's common tools that you would recognize, except for our sifter. Our sifter is waist level. Each forensics expert builds theirs to meet their needs.
Let's look at some of these photographs here. I'm going to tender into evidence. It's Shaw 1 through 281. And investigator, did you have an opportunity to meet with us and go through all these pictures and the videos and everything?
Yes, sir.
And were they fair and accurate photographs of what was done at the scene and other things in this case?
Yes, sir.
So, Judge, at this time, I tendered evidence states exhibits, but it's Shaw 1 through Shaw 281.
All right. Objection? No. All right. You admitted?
Give me these just in case they should pop up on the screen. Judge, may we turn down the lights a little bit for these? Would that be okay? All right. We're going to walk through some photographs. I may call them States 1 or Shaw 1 or 1, but all these photographs are going to have your name and a number. So Shaw 1, what do we have here?
So with this first series of photographs, all I'm doing is taking overall photographs outside of the crime scene tape.
As you look at 1, as you look at the photograph, there's a pine tree to the right, and is that the beginning of the burn pile?
So this oak right
that
here, that is
Okay.
is directly in front of the left side of the pile, and then that pile extends from that tree over to the right.
This is 2. We'll be moving to the right. 3, 4. Now, this stage, there's no really markings or anything. What is this? How early on is this in the processing the scene?
I'm waiting for Dr. Gooding to arrive, but I'm still taking pictures, trying to do something to be ahead so that when she arrives, we can tackle the next task.
But you didn't dive into the pile and start doing anything until she arrived?
No, sir.
Arrived on the scene. 5, 6. And was there anything with the pile itself when you first got there that you noticed and thought, here are some things of interest?
Other than the skeletal remains, for whatever reason, kept getting the smell of citronella, and I don't know why, and that's not a normal smell for me at a death investigation. I mean, I generally smell other smells related to the artifact of death, but I kept smelling citronella, and I was like, did I spill some when I was filling mine at my house? I don't know, but I just, every now and again, as I walked around the pile, I could just smell that.
8, 9, just going back. Now, 13, this is looking from one side of the pile, and you said it was still hot to the touch. Was it on one side or certain parts of it that were that way?
So I didn't walk all the way around. When I got close to it, did what most was just stick my hand. I was like, that's still radiating some pretty good heat. And I own firefighter rated boots because I do sometimes have to go into arson scenes. And I wasn't willing to walk close to that in those boots. I was like, let me see what the actual temperature is. One, I wanted it to be safe, and two, I needed to document it because it was still radiating quite a bit of heat for this condition.
How can you compare that? How hot is that if it's over 200 degrees?
When we boil water at 212, we can get scalding burns, I believe, between 110 and 160. That's hot enough for me to go, I'm not willing to melt polyester to my skin, and I'm not willing to risk the firefighter rating of these boots. We get an expert out here, see what the temperature is, and see how long we need to wait before we can actually work.
Shaw 14, as I zoom in, what did you notice first when you got to the pile?
So this one, I'm on the left side, and I'm shooting over. I can see what appears to be part of a hand. At the time, what I think is a hand. I see what appears to be part of the rib cage, and I'm starting to orient myself. I see parts of different degrees of what I believe are temperature variations. So when we look at something, we say clothing initially blocks heat. It won't burn evenly. That's what I'm seeing in my head, and I'm trying to figure this out, but I see that it's compact too, and I'm like, okay, is this someone who's fallen over? Because I don't see what we would traditionally think of as a full skeleton of a human being. So did someone fall over? Did someone experience some sort of issue that caused them to fall here? All these are running through my head as I'm taking these pictures, trying to process this and think of next steps to go. How am I going to document this, and what am I going to look for?
And at this time, you didn't know anything about a bullet in the ribs or anything like that?
No, sir.
15, 16, 17. Now we're getting on to 18. And who do we have in this picture? What's going on?
So these are the start of the forensic anthropology examination. So we're marking flags, and you start to see wooden stakes go down for our datum lines. And then we have master's candidate students and the deputy coroners in helping to rake and clear while we're taking pictures.
And as you look at the exhibit, Shaw 18, the photograph, I've got the cursor here. It appears that
Okay, so after this next question and answer, before he asks another question, we're gonna then stop and end the stream there for tonight. Because this one doesn't have another break. I should have stopped at the other break and I just wasn't thinking. Um, and so yes, but we'll stop in about like 5-ish minutes after this question has been asked and answered. I'll scroll back a couple of seconds. Um, so that you guys can hear the full question. Um, and then we'll end that for tonight. And then I will pick up on Thursday for day 2, part 4, and day 3, part 1. So thank you guys. Thank you for everybody who has been joining me so far. I really appreciate everybody's support. So we're going to sit here and go back to the video. And I'm going to take it back for just a split second here.
Initially blocks heat, it won't burn evenly. That's what I'm seeing in my head, and I'm trying to figure this out, but I see that it's compact too, and I'm like, okay, is this someone who's fallen over? Because I don't see what we would traditionally think of as a full skeleton of a human being. So did someone fall over? Did someone experience some sort of issue that caused them to fall here? All these are running through my head as I'm taking these pictures, trying to process this and think of next steps to go. How am I going to document this, and what am I going to look for?
And at this time, you didn't know anything about a bullet in the ribs or anything like that?
No, sir.
15, 16, 17, now we're getting on to 18. And who do we have in this picture? What's going on?
So these are the start of the forensic anthropology examination. So we're marking flags, and you start to see wooden stakes go down for our datum lines. And then we have master's candidates and the deputy coroners in helping to rake and clear while we're taking pictures.
And
All right, so that's going to be our stopping point for tonight. I apologize. I would have kept going, except for, like I said, I have to be up fairly early in the morning, since the kids all have dentist appointments, and we have to get 2 of the kids from school while we'll have one of them with us. So I appreciate everybody who joined the live today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will put up in a little bit my schedule for Thursday. And don't forget to hit the little bell um, so that you get all of the notifications. I greatly appreciate everybody for your continued support. I appreciate those of you who have been returning to my stream night after night. And I really just appreciate the discussion that we have all been having on social media, um, and all of that. I'm really excited to be covering these trials with you guys. And again, if there is a particular trial that you want me to cover, if you go to the community tab on my YouTube page, then you will see that I already have a post that's in Q&A format, and you can just leave me an answer there. Because I'm really looking for more trials that we can cover after the Verzi case. I'm potentially going to cover the Piketon murder trial. But that one requires me to do another deep dive into the case. And I really want to have a good grasp of the case before I start talking about it again. It's been a while since I have covered anything Piketon. The last time that I did was when George the Fourth was on trial, So that was last year. So I really need to just kind of brush up on the facts of that case. So I feel like that one probably won't happen before Billy Wagner's trial this year, but you never know. It might be on the list. But that is a case that truly fascinates me, and I have a lot of insight with that case due to my own experiences with like domestic violence and the court system for custody. And so I really feel like that is going to be a good case for me to cover. I feel like you guys will get a lot of really good feedback from me on that case. Um, and I can kind of give you some aspects of things that happen in like PA law um, that really would have been very beneficial had it had a chance to come into play um, in this case for the Piketon massacre case. And, you know, I have a lot of questions about, you know, into Jake's mindset. And I feel like I could give a lot of insight into the type of behaviors that he was exhibiting in the case as well. So that's another case that I'm really excited to be able to bring to you guys. But I'm not 100% sure when that case will be something that we cover. I am hoping for sometime in 2025. Um, but no promises there. Um, there are a couple resources that I'm looking into, um, and I also want to go over them. I'm currently also listening to Crime Weekly's covering of this, so if you um, want to kind of brush up on it, listen to Crime Weekly's playlist on the Piketon massacres. I really highly recommend it. Um, Derek and Stephanie did a really good job on covering the case, and they have a whole like family tree that they snagged off the internet and everything for this case. So I feel like that's a very good way to catch up. That's one of the ways that I'm using right now to catch up. But we have a million trials right now going on that I'm covering. So Piketon has kind of taken um, a seat on the back burner for right now until we get past some of these bigger trials that we're covering. And I'm really excited to bring you guys the Nicole Verzi trial in December. My amazing husband is going to be driving me to downtown Pittsburgh um, most of the time for this trial, for the entirety of the trial. The only days that I really will struggle being able to cover will be um, any nights that he works from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. So that'll be pretty much every Friday and the occasional Monday that I won't be able to make it. Um, Otherwise, I will pretty much be free um, Monday through Wednesday. Thursdays may be a little difficult because we typically pick up my father-in-law from work. I usually drop my husband off at work, and then I usually go get two of our three minions from after school. So Thursdays can be a little bit hectic. Um, and so I don't know how much trial time I will be able to get on Thursdays. So definitely Thursday and Friday are going to be difficult days to get in there, but I will make you guys a promise that I will do recaps on any Thursdays that I can't make it into trial, and I will do a recap every Friday of what happened because I will be watching live those days if they televise it. Um, Otherwise, I will be getting my sources from those that are able to be within the courtroom on those days. But I do promise that we will have some sort of recap um, on the case that day. Um, thank you again, everybody. I'm sorry if I'm thanking you all too much. I'm just truly grateful um, for you spending time with me. Um, and I look forward to talking to everybody on Thursday. I hope everybody has a wonderful night and enjoy your night off for me. Um, I'm not entirely sure what all we're doing tomorrow outside of my husband is carving pumpkins with all the kids while I'm in the kitchen having a mental breakdown and making pumpkin puree for the dogs so that if any children lose any fingers, I am not culpable for that. It is then all on my husband. I'm teasing. But yes, I hope everybody has a great rest of your night. And I look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday.